Yes.
What tips would you have for an aspiring writer?
Tips for an aspiring writer. Well, the first thing that I would say is a little bit self-serving. I think that you should read all of my books very closely. I don't think that you can learn more about writing from anyone else. No. I think you gotta read. I mean, reading is the absolute foundation of writing. Reading is the only apprenticeship that we have as writers. It's the way of finding out how, for the last several millennia, people have used text to create ideas and characters in people's heads. And so I think you have to read. I also think it's really helpful to tell stories. To tell stories to your friends, see when they get bored, see when they're looking past you, see when they laugh. That helps you kind of learn the pace of a story. And I think like when you're writing a whole book, you have to use that pace of a story on a kind of larger scale, but you still need to have that pace and that sense of timing and that sense of you're going to lose them if you don't do X. That's something that, to be honest, I'm still learning, and I think I have a lot of learning to do, but I feel like I do make progress on that front when I listen, like even when I go back and I watch my old videos, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so bored, I'm so bored, I'm so bored, I'm so bored. And I notice when I get bored, and I notice when viewers get bored, and that helps. Oh, there's so many questions and there's so little time left to answer them. Person with 2 hands.
Okay, so you're talking about in The Leaves in the Grass, how they're trying to stop the them and just have an us.
Yeah.
Do you think that's what nerd fighting is? And if so, how do you explain Decepticons?
Do I think that's what, that's a good question. Okay, so the opposite of a nerd fighter is a Decepticon. Transformers joke. But we made it before the movie, in my defense. I did not know that there were going to be these hit movies, these amazingly, impossibly bad hit movies. It's like epically worst movie ever type hit movies. Yeah, but so given that we're trying to, Leaves of Grass is about creating an us without a them, and also that's what the Nerd Fighter community is about. It's about being a big tent community that celebrates intellectualism. It's about a lot of people who've been made to feel like they're a them, being made to feel like we're an us. That's what's really at the heart of our community. How do I explain the concept of Decepticons, which clearly is a them? Yeah, that's such a good question that I feel like I should dodge it. No, here's my honest answer. Like, they're just not us yet. They'll come around, I think. When people are mean to us, when people are mean to nerds, I think the appropriate response is to assume, rightly, that many of them will come around. And many of them have reasons for being mean that have nothing to do with you. The biggest bully in my middle school died a few years after college, and it was just tremendously sad, because when he died, I realized that he had been in just tremendous pain his entire life, and that the things that he did to me were a tiny ripple of the things that were done to him. And it takes adulthood in many ways to be able to see that. It takes distance from the pain that's being heaped upon you to be able to see that. But once you do, you learn that evil is maybe more complicated than we'd like to make it. So that would be my answer. The Decepticons are just nerd fighters who aren't nerd fighters yet. A couple more questions, although that was a great last question, but there's so many hands. Yes. Yes, you. Is that not adequately specific? Purple, maybe? Yeah.
So you wrote Alaska in first person.
Yeah.
And then you wrote Catherine's in second or third person.
Yeah.
And then you went back to first person.
Yeah.
Do you prefer first person?
Do I prefer first person? Yeah, yeah, I do. It's just more fun for me, and I think it's a lot of times more fun for the reader as well if I can do a good job of creating a voice that they believe in. I wrote Catherine's in third person because it's about a kid who can't tell stories, and it seemed a little bit disingenuous to try to tell an interesting story in his voice. Yes?
When you were younger, did you want to be a writer, or did you have a different dream job?
Did I want to be a writer when I was younger? Did I have a different dream job? I still have the same dream job, which is not working. And I'm just not there yet, but it's still my dream. I would quit writing in a second. Don't kid yourself. I would abandon all of you for a Tahitian island. No, I wouldn't. I mean, depends on how much money, but probably. I wanted to be a writer when I was a kid. Yeah, I really did. When I got older, I wanted to be a minister. And I worked as a chaplain at a children's hospital for about 6 months, and then I realized that I didn't want to be a minister. I wasn't cut out for it. And then I went back to wanting to be a writer. So those are the only two things I've ever really wanted to do. I mean, I had a brief flirtation with like firemen, that kind of thing. But I still really dig firemen. When we're done, I'm going to answer one more question, then I'm going to tell a story about my wife. Sorry to all the people who I didn't answer your question. It's no lack of love, but yes, first row.
Yeah, if you tried to like write a fantasy story,
Yeah.
do you think you could do it?
Do I think I could write a fantasy story? It's a good question. No. I don't think I could because, and this goes back to how we learn how to write. I learned how to write from reading realistic fiction. And I learned how to build worlds from reading realistic fiction. And I think if I tried to write a real fantasy novel, like I might try to write like a fake fantasy novel that like uses a couple things that I've picked up about fantasy from reading it as an adult, but I just don't think it was how I was wired as a writer when I was very young. I love fantasy novels now, but I don't think that I could write a good one. I just don't think that I have the creativity for it, the world building for it. All right, so I'm going to tell you a story about firemen. I've never told this story before, and I think it's hilarious. So my wife, when we first started dating, she lived in this. She lived on the north side of Chicago in one of these like five floor walk-ups, and she lived on the 5th floor, and it was always like 175 degrees inside of her apartment, even in the winter. And the guy who lived on the 2nd floor got drunk one night. And he was, you know, as drunk people sometimes do, he decided that he was going to have a late night snack, and it was a microwave dinner, but his microwave didn't work, so he put it on the stovetop, but he left the packaging on, and then he fell asleep. So his apartment caught on fire, and Sarah went downstairs because there was like smoke coming out of his apartment, and she like banged on the door and everything, and she like tried to knock it down, and the guy was totally asleep, and so she ran upstairs and she called 911, and they were like, "We'll be right there." And so these three, you have to imagine me wearing like my pajamas, my beautiful wife, who you've never seen on video, but trust me, she's very pretty, wearing her pajamas, and her roommate, the aforementioned Laura, of the Alpo can, also wearing pajamas, and these three like massively buff firemen walk in, and one of them like flips up his visor, and he's got like piercing blue eyes, and he's like 26 years old and just nothing but rippling muscle, and he turns away from the door, and he looks at the woman who is now my wife, and he winks at her, and he says, "Watch this." And he says, "Watch this," and then he goes like, "Goosh!" And the door flies. Smoke billows out. Sarah says, trying to think of a way to connect that to Walt Whitman, but I don't think I'm gonna. I'm so grateful to you all for being here. The party blower cannot tell you how grateful I am to you and how much you enrich my life. And I only hope that all the people here with awesome Nerdfighter shirts, and generally all of the Nerdfighters, that you can like meet each other and like become friends, and then like it'll just get better and better and better. But thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you so much for being awesome. I'm happy to sign all of your stuff. I apologize in advance if we can't take pictures because there's so many people here and they're going to get mad. But maybe you can, as long as it doesn't hold up the line, like try to find a way. But I'm sorry about the picture situation in advance. Trying to think if there's anything else I should say. Robin, is there anything else I should say? No, Jamal's going to say it. Oh, wow, awesome. Okay, so but thank you guys so much. Thank you.